Welcome to today's session. Another Africa is possible. We'll be looking today at living in poverty in the midst of plenty. Africa has been a continent that has been the preferred place over many centuries for most civilizations. And the biblical worldview takes us back to the story in the Garden of Eden, or the story of Genesis, the beginning. God put mankind in three relationships. A relationship with himself, where mankind and God were to be in fellowship. A relationship with creation, where mankind was to be a steward to look after creation. But also a relationship where mankind recognized that God was the owner of all that was created. But because of mankind's rebellion, turning against God, we see that these relationships were broken. And so broken relationships are the core of all forms of poverty. So spiritually, a broken relationship with God is very foundational to poverty, because communities or individuals that have no relationship with their Creator basically are limited in terms of their creativity and in terms of the ability to relate with God's creation. This is because human beings rather than having God at the center, replace God with idols. So we see idolatry predominantly in most Western cultures, and in Africa here we see predominantly witchcraft, which is a counterfeit religion, because witchcraft actually divides people rather than uniting people. It's a form of using spiritual powers to try and manipulate the natural world, and this results in lack of trust and belief in false gods. So if we are going to look at prosperity in Africa, we need to re-examine what is at the center of our relationship with our Creator. The second set of broken relationships is broken relationships with people. Self-centeredness, deception, exploitation, and abuse of other people. Each of you can relate with this reality. I was talking to a young group of people, and they were forming a company, and they cannot get along. These are university graduates trying to do a business, but because of each one's selfishness and each one's self-centeredness, the business cannot run. They're losing customers. So if we are to see Africa's poverty addressed, we must find out how we reconcile relationships between people. The third set of relationships that need to be addressed is our relationship with creation. How do we view creation? Is there purpose to all this madness? One way of responding to it is laziness. Feeling I'm a victim, I cannot do anything, and somebody else is responsible for my destiny. Another way is actually overworking and killing ourselves, thinking that the amount of effort we put in is what actually results in our flourishing. Certain cultures, such as in Japan or certain Asian contexts, people work themselves to death as an honor. Both those extremes are wrong. We are carers of God's creation, stewards of His creation, and God did give us a Sabbath principle where every 7 days we'd rest from our labor just as He did His, and literally every night we rest. The rich fool who I talked about last time was told, tonight God will require your soul from you. Every time you go to sleep, you acknowledge that you're not in control of your destiny, and it's God who gives you back your soul in the morning. Greed, where we all want everything now, today, for myself and for my family, my nation, or my community. All these broken relationships with creation result in poverty. Another core of this also is broken relationships with self. Jesus told us, love your neighbor as yourself. This is not self-love, but understanding who you truly are in God's sight. You are not in control of your destiny. God is. When we worry, we're anxious, we're insecure, or we lack self-esteem, or we are proud, arrogant, or boastful, all these are a demonstration of a broken relationship with self. God calls us to walk humbly before Him as stewards of His creation. And if we are going to see Africa transformed from a continent where we live in poverty in the midst of plenty, we're going to need to recognize that we have to address restoring a relationship with God, restoring meaningful relationships with one another, and restoring meaningful relationships with creation. And of course, restoring and understanding who we are in God's sight. Let me just talk as I conclude one strength that Africa has. Africa is known for its social capital. African families are still very, very vibrant. And if you look at the banking industry in Kenya, for example, you'll find that the most successful ventures are actually cooperatives, where people come together, save together, put their money in the bank, and because of the social collateral, they're actually able to borrow money collectively. How can we enhance Africa's strengths of relationships to restore all our relationships so that we move from a continent of living in poverty to a continent of flourishing? It is my desire that each of us will seek to heal our broken relationships. Thank you.